The question was pointed: were the videos filmed inside her apartment? Her acknowledgement was immediate, almost a given, but that admission was quickly followed by a justification. "I was forced to," she alleged. The woman was Evelyn Campbell, a 23-year-old mother now at the center of a dark investigation. Once the clip surfaced on the internet, it inevitably captured the attention of investigators. She claimed she was not a willing participant, but a victim. She alleged her boyfriend had pressed a .45 caliber pistol into her mouth and threatened to end her life if she didn't comply. Her strategy appeared to be one of deletion and deflection, believing that erasing the video and implicating her boyfriend would make the problem vanish. She spoke of being traumatized and wanting to escape the memory, but investigators had already unearthed the very footage she tried to bury. They had traced it back to her own phone, and with that discovery, the story she was constructing began to collapse. No, because in that moment, she felt subhuman. That what happened was fundamentally wrong. The detective saw the phone as the key, a modern-day lifeline. He steered the conversation toward a single, critical request. He wasn't interested in her social media accounts or other videos. He asked for direct permission to examine her phone at that very moment. His sole purpose was to search for any trace of those specific recordings. Such a discovery, he reasoned, would only corroborate her story. Her consent was immediate and unconditional. Her response was oddly detached. "You've already seen it," she stated, "so does it really matter?" The detective then escalated his request: consent to search her apartment. The case began on July 16, 2024, when the Xenia Police Division received a cyber tip concerning a video file originating from Evelyn's apartment in Z. The video captured a scene of unsettling domesticity, a young child deeply asleep while an adult engaged in a private act nearby. The recording was made, and eventually, it found its way online. As the footage spread, anonymous tips began to flow in, directing law enforcement to the digital evidence. The investigation gained immediate momentum. Analysts meticulously broke down the video, cross-referencing frames with photographs from Evelyn's social media. They scrutinized the background, the furniture, the layout of the apartment. Every detail was a match. The case was solidifying at a rapid pace. On the evening of September 3, 2024, authorities moved in, taking Evelyn into custody in Xenia. The following day, September 4, 2024, she was arraigned in the Greene County Common Pleas Court. A judge set her bond at $100,000, and she was remanded to the Greene County Jail. After the formal booking process, detectives escorted her from a holding cell into the stark confines of an interrogation room. As is standard, the legal resolution of this case will be detailed later. For now, the focus shifts to what she revealed inside that room. The detective began by attempting to bridge the chasm between them, offering a carefully worded acknowledgement of her situation. "I don't understand what you're going through," he stated plainly. He assured her he had listened, that he understood the gravity of the circumstances, that it wasn't a joke to him. Then, he pivoted, preparing to lay out the official narrative of how they had arrived at her door. The investigation, he explained, began with a referral from the ICAC, the Task Force for Internet Crimes Against Children. He provided a clinical overview of the agency's function. They are a digital tripwire, alerted whenever illicit material involving a minor surfaces online, launching their own preliminary inquiries. These ICAC units are stationed across the country, and once they pinpoint a jurisdiction, they pass the intelligence to the local police department. In this instance, they had received a critical tip. The referral traced the origin of the material to her address, which triggered the notification to their department. He admitted the referral had been sitting dormant for about a year, offering no excuse for the delay. The closest thing to an explanation was the grim reality of police work, heavy caseloads that inevitably pushed some investigations to the back burner. "It's crazy," he conceded, before stating that they had only begun actively working the case that very day. He informed her they had reviewed the videos and that her name was explicitly linked to the initial report from the task force. Their own digital forensics had only confirmed it. They found her Facebook profile, and the photographs there seemed to be a perfect match for the woman in the disturbing footage he had shown her moments before. "That's what brought us to your doorstep," he concluded, framing the encounter not as an accusation, but as the logical end of a digital trail. He signaled that there were specific questions he was required to ask. The conversation, he guided, would have to turn to the creation of the videos, before circling back to the central question, confirming her identity in the footage. "That is you in the video, correct?" She asked him to repeat the question. "Yes," she answered. When asked if the videos were filmed at her apartment, her confirmation was immediate. "Obviously. Yeah," she replied. But before the detective could continue, she interjected with a defense. "But I was forced to." He acknowledged her claim, promising they would address it. "In reality, I don't have those videos," she insisted, deflecting responsibility. "I was made to make them. So, you need to get with who has." Confronted by detectives, Evelyn showed no hesitation. She readily confirmed her presence in the video and acknowledged it was filmed within the walls of her own apartment. But in the very next breath, the narrative fractured. Her admission quickly morphed into a claim that she was a victim, coerced into the act against her will. But the digital breadcrumbs from the CyberTips metadata had already led investigators directly back to her. The upload originated from her phone at her location. At that stage of the inquiry, no evidence existed to support her claim of being coerced. For detectives, that immediate attempt to shift blame was a telling psychological marker, particularly her swift move to implicate her ex-boyfriend. She asserted that the phone used belonged to him, that the videos were on his device. She claimed that upon examining the phone, she found not just a few incriminating files, but a vast collection. This, she presented, was the core of the issue she was now revealing to them. According to her account, the phone was filled with nothing but disturbing content. After hearing a supposed threat against her sister, her immediate instinct was to go to her. She alleged that he had demanded she give him the videos, but that she had searched the phone herself out of suspicion that he was cheating on her. It was then, she claimed, that she discovered the collection of videos depicting young children, a discovery that she said marked the definitive end of their relationship. She framed her decision as a non-negotiable boundary, stating she could not be with someone involved in that kind of darkness. She emphasized her own youth, stating she was only 23 years old. His age, 43, seemed to her to contextualize the disturbing nature of the situation after the fact. When asked how their relationship began, she explained that he used to live nearby with his mother. The location, she clarified, was her own apartment complex. His mother lived just across from her. He had lived in the same U-shaped building, making them close neighbors. She confirmed her location within the complex. She pinpointed his mother's apartment as being near where the maintenance office was situated. She confirmed it was on the other side of the courtyard from her. She stated that his mother still resided there, alleging that this proximity resulted in her being continuously stalked. This, she added, was another problem she intended to solve by seeking a restraining order against the woman. Pressed again on the timeline, she confirmed that she met him while he was living with his mother. He was living with his mother when they met. The year was 2020, she recalled, perhaps late 2019 when they were first introduced. They officially became a couple in early 2020 after talking for several months, and according to her, they had been together ever since. But she painted a picture of a recent and rapid decline, describing the past few months as a constant cycle of arguments, fighting, and screaming. She had reached her breaking point, she claimed, and had finally cut all ties, refusing to answer his calls or respond to his messages. She alleged he resorted to harassing her from other phone numbers and through any means available. The harassment, she claimed, was relentless and without reason. She made the disturbing allegation that he would send her explicit photos and videos of himself with other people, including younger individuals and random strangers. It was a situation, she said, that she wanted no part of. She stated that he resided in Dayton or Troutwood and had no reason to be in her area. The investigator then directly questioned if she was ever forced to make the videos. She denied it, saying there were times he suggested it, but she always refused. Then, her story pivoted dramatically as she swore on the memory of her deceased grandmother. She claimed that on one specific occasion, he had put a .45 in her mouth, threatening to kill her, her sister, or someone else if she did not comply. As Evelyn recounted this alleged threat, her emotional state intensified dramatically. She swore on her grandmother's life that a gun was once forced into her mouth and that her sister's safety had been used as leverage. The way she recounted the story was visceral, carrying the weight of a memory being relived. Yet, investigators could find no official report of such an incident, nor were there any witnesses linked to the event. Court records later showed the claim remained unsubstantiated throughout the case, and just moments after her emotional account, her tone began to fray with frustration. She positioned herself as a protector, insisting she was unwilling to put others at risk. She would rather sacrifice herself than her sister, she said, referencing a previous tense exchange with the investigator. The investigator refocused on the facts, asking a critical question. When these videos were being made, where was he? She replied that he was in the house. She confirmed his presence in the home with her, but described his movements as being in and out of the room. When asked if anyone else was there, she stated that it was only the two of them. He rarely permitted anyone inside his house, but he made an exception for him, simply because they were spending time together as friends. It was an ordinary day, indistinguishable from any other, until the moment his companion became enraged and issued a threat that would change everything. The memory of the event was, in his own words, sickening. He acknowledged a combative personality, admitting he knew he had a mouth on him and a tendency to push people's buttons, but he insisted there was always a limit to his provocations. One does not threaten another person's life. He maintained that he had never, in his life, made such a threat, regardless of how infuriated he became. He might say something regrettable in the heat of anger, but he had never pressed a weapon into someone's mouth. He had never told someone, "I'm about to shoot you if you don't do this." He asserted that he was simply not that type of person. The entire ordeal left him feeling disgusted. He found it difficult to speak about, or even to think about. It was a trauma he was actively trying to move past, to escape from. The event had occurred about a year prior. More than a year had passed since the videos were created. A little over a year. It was more likely closer to 2 years. He stated he would never deliberately inflict such an act upon someone. The thought alone was depraved. He was now getting a full account of the situation from the other man's mother. This was happening precisely because he was trying to move on and distance himself, a fact which only made the situation more perverse. Another voice tried to offer reassurance, but he felt like a broken man, convinced that nothing about the situation was right. The timing of this revelation was wrong, he insisted. It was brought up at the worst possible moment. The narrative was now distorted. He confronted the other person, stating, "You really did threaten my life. You put a gun in my mouth and pulled the trigger." He dismissed the other's excuse, cutting through the distraction to repeat the core accusation. "You threatened my life." And the threat, he added, extended to his sister. He recounted the ultimatum. He was forced to perform an act, or his life, or his sister's life, would be forfeit. In that moment, he would rather risk his own life than someone else's. But now, for this to be brought up 2 years after the fact, was incomprehensible. He warned that he was about to turn the situation back on his accuser, that the man's life was about to be ruined. He was not joking. The man had just destroyed his own livelihood. The man now needed to be put in the ground. Whether that meant through the prison system or some other way, he could not believe this was happening to him. The immediate consequence was a newly opened investigation with Child Protective Services. A voice of support interjected, reminding him of a previous crisis they had helped him through. They promised to get him through this one as well. He was reminded of the time his sister attacked him and how they had helped when the police arrived and he was panicking. The voice was firm, promising he would be completely fine and that they would do whatever was necessary to take care of him. His disbelief was absolute. The supporting voice agreed, unable to comprehend it either. The voice pleaded with him to listen, acknowledging his past skepticism, but promising they would navigate this crisis successfully. He would emerge from this completely unscathed. He was consumed by an internal fire, a deep and searing anger. The other person acknowledged his rage. It was described as a logical, emotional response, an understandable reaction when one's family is involved. He described a scene where his mother arrived to find police officers standing at his door, staring at him. He declared his intention to report the man to the authorities. He knew where he worked and what kind of car he drove. He only needed a few more pieces of information, and then he would handle the situation. He couldn't understand why this was happening now. The only explanation was that he was moving on, that he was done with the relationship. The fallout was immediate. Not only was he impacted, but his mother was forced to leave work, knowing she was not supposed to. She was aware that leaving her job at that moment would likely get her into trouble. He already knew this. He explained that calling his mother was a last resort. He couldn't call the person he was speaking with because they were not a legal guardian. The only other person he could have called was also irrelevant, as that individual did not have custody either. He knew it would take months to resolve that this was not how the child protective system operated. In a stunning development, authorities had issued a search warrant for his home, and it was being searched as they spoke. He admitted there was so much in that house, he couldn't possibly know what was in there and what wasn't. The contents of the house were a mystery. an overwhelming collection of items that defied any attempt at a coherent inventory. In a recorded phone call to her family, Evelyn's voice was a torrent of anger and frustration, the sound of a woman pushed to her limit. She framed herself as the victim, claiming her ex had twisted the narrative against her, her primary fear being the intervention of Child Protective Services. What she failed to disclose was a history with the authorities, prior investigations involving teenagers that almost certainly flagged her for closer scrutiny by the agency she now feared. The anguish in her voice on the call was palpable, a raw and undeniable emotion. But emotion could not alter the digital trail, and the evidence investigators were meticulously piecing together pointed inexorably back to her own devices, making the interrogation about them all the more critical. The detective noted an inconsistency. "So, you said he always uses an Android, but is that an Apple? Do you always use Apple?" "I've had this Apple for a minute now," she responded vaguely. "I've used it for probably a year, maybe." She then contradicted herself. "Okay, I don't know. Not even that. It's new. I just got it from Spectrum and I'm paying it off." The investigator pressed for clarity. "What did you have prior to that one?" An Android." "An Android?" he confirmed. "Yeah? Do you know which one? Do you still have it in the apartment?" "Yeah, but it's broke," she claimed. "See, the screen won't turn on." "Okay, like it's got one of them, buttons on the back?" "Mm-hmm. And I don't know what happened. I think I dropped it or something where it got exposed to water, but the screen won't come on." The story presented a convenient dead end. I could hook it up to something probably and get like pictures or something off of it, but there really ain't nothing on it. The detective shifted to a more pointed question. "You were saying to your mom or somebody about text messages of him threatening you. Are those going to be on that phone?" "It's on my Gmail," she stated. "On your Gmail? What is your Gmail?" Okay. "Did he have access to your Gmail?" "No, but he had access to my old one and it got deleted." "What was your old one?" He had that on his computer." "Okay, which computer ended up stolen?" she added, "so I don't know where it went." Her explanation devolved into a confusing tangle of technical issues. "My old Android, it was like, you can't log into this account. Something's been, not recovered, but it's been something another." And I was like, I don't even know what's going on. It was a narrative designed to obscure. I just made a new one and then I went to my old one, like the 71. I used that back in like high school. Okay, you know what I'm saying? Like I used that for schoolwork. So I just started using that one and I made a new iCloud, which is that's the email that I use. Either that one or, but that's all I use for the only thing I use that for is my OnlyFans to log in. For a long stretch of the interview, Evelyn wove a complicated and often contradictory history of her phones and accounts. She spoke of old, broken Androids from the time the video was recorded and claimed, without evidence, that multiple Gmail accounts had simply vanished. Her insistence was unwavering. The illicit material could not be on any device she currently possessed, placing the blame squarely and once again on her ex. Yet, in the same breath, she spoke openly of her business on OnlyFans, conducted on the very phone she had brought with her to the station. It was a detail that would later prove damning, as forensic analysis revealed that multiple videos and data logs had been erased from that device during that precise time frame. Her long, technical explanation suddenly sounded less like a victim's confusion and more like a calculated effort to conceal the truth. The detective's tone shifted. "Hopefully, I told you before about your phone that we're going to take it as evidence." He softened the blow. "I'll be honest with you. I don't want to do that. I mean, everyone uses their phones like their lifeline." "Yeah," she agreed. Something I'm asking you." He made his objective clear. "I don't care about your OnlyFans account. I don't care about your OnlyFans videos. Would you allow me to look into your phone right now? I want to see if there are any of those specific videos." He framed it as an opportunity for her to prove her innocence. "It would be confirming what you're telling me. When you record videos for your OnlyFans, do you do it all through just the camera app?" "Yeah, I do it all night." "Yeah, okay. Just the camera," she replied, immediately deflecting. "I try to delete. I don't have enough storage. I got so many screenshots and just pictures of random." The detective offered a moment of empathy. "I think we all do." "Not 2,000 of them, though," she retorted, then abruptly acquiesced. "Anytime. Say stop. Okay, I don't really care." Her final words were a performance of detached indifference. I mean, you done seen it, so does it really? Okay. She explained a significant void in her digital history, a period stretching from October of 2021 to July of 2023, by stating she simply had not owned an iPhone. At the time, she was not an Apple user. Investigators confirmed that during the period the video was made, she was operating an Android device. She claimed any data had been backed up to a Gmail account that was no longer accessible, alleging it had been hacked and subsequently deleted. Her return to the Apple ecosystem, she explained, was a direct result of feeling she was being monitored through the Android phone. There was an unsettling paranoia in her voice as she confessed she had no idea how he always knew her precise location. When questioned about explicit material, she claimed the only content that could be considered as such involved a scene in a bathtub. She framed the incident not as obscene, but as something she found comical, describing the subject wearing goggles, lying perfectly flat, and stretched out completely underwater. When pressed to identify the individual in the video, she offered no name, leaving the query unanswered. The tone in the room shifted as investigators informed her of the next procedural step. A search warrant for her apartment was in process. She initially expressed confusion, believing a search had already been conducted. The detectives clarified the methodical legal process. A warrant must first be drafted, then gain the prosecutor's approval before finally receiving a judge's signature. They explained that they were currently in that bureaucratic limbo, awaiting the final approvals. To circumvent the delay, the investigator made a tactical request, asking if she would voluntarily provide consent to search her apartment. She agreed, but with a specific condition. Her presence was required, a necessity she attributed to the need to control her dog. The investigator noted that the dog had been agitated even when she was home during a previous visit. She began a rambling, disconnected description of her dog's parentage, suggesting it was part American something, though she couldn't recall the other breed. She vaguely remembered being told it was some type of terrier mix. She explained that, due to a surgery, the dog was mentally stuck in its adolescent phase, its habit of jumping on people, a misunderstood act of a big baby rather than aggression. Her voice trailed off as she admitted the animal had not been socialized around many people. The detective carefully reinforced that her cooperation was not mandatory and that he was merely asking for consent, not compelling it. He was making it clear there was no pressure being applied whatsoever. She deflected, asking for a timeline on the search warrant, a question to which the investigator had no definitive answer. She asserted that they would undoubtedly get their warrant that day. The investigator corrected her, stating that a judge's refusal was always a possibility in the legal system. She dismissed the idea, confident it wouldn't be denied, while the detective noted that, as far as he knew, they were still awaiting a decision. It was possible, he conceded, that approval had come through while they had been speaking. The question was put to her again. Did she prefer they adhere to protocol and wait for the official warrant? She confirmed that she did. The detective acknowledged her choice, adding that he understood completely. In a strangely detached comment, she remarked that the delay would at least give her time to do the dishes. As the interview concluded, the case proceeded through the judicial system. In October of 2025, Evelyn altered her plea to no contest on one charge of gross sexual imposition and another of pandering obscenity. As part of the plea arrangement, 2 other charges were dismissed, and the judge accepted the plea, entering guilty verdicts. On the 15th of January, 2026, Judge Michael Buckwalter sentenced Evelyn to a prison term of 10 to 13.5 years. The sentence was broken down into 36 months for the gross sexual imposition count, to be served concurrently with 7 to 10.5 years for the pandering charge. She was officially designated a Tier 2 sex offender, mandated to register her home address every 180 days for the subsequent 25 years. Thank you for watching this examination of the case. For both new viewers and longtime followers of the channel, another of our recent case files is available to view right here. We will see you in the next installment. This narrative of digital betrayal and shattered innocence serves as a haunting reminder that in our hyper-connected world, the shadows we cast online are permanent. We often live under the illusion that a delete button can erase our choices or that deflection can shield us from the truth. But the case of Evelyn Campbell proves that justice is a digital tripwire that never sleeps. Behind every grainy video and every encrypted message, there is a pulse, a real human life, often a vulnerable child, whose safety is non-negotiable. This is more than a story of crime and punishment. It is a plea for absolute accountability. We must realize that our digital footprints are not just data, they are the blueprints of our character. When we prioritize profit or convenience over the sanctity of childhood, we lose our humanity. Let this be a sobering lesson. The law may be slow, but it is relentless. Technology will eventually betray the betrayer. We have a collective, moral-bound duty to be the shield for those who cannot protect themselves. Choose integrity over secrecy. Choose protection over exploitation. Because once innocence is stolen, it can never be returned, and the truth, no matter how deeply buried, will always find its way home.